Yay.
There you go.
My first time hosting, so.
So thank you all so much for being a part of this discussion. This will be relatively informal so that we can get everybody's needs met as best we can. I am Christy Corbin. I am a certified peer recovery specialist in Virginia. I'm a trainer of that curriculum. I am also a family support partner and have been in that formal capacity since 2014, and have been working alongside Pam at the Office of Child and Family Services at DVHDS to expand the family support partner workforce in Virginia. And as the money came available for our community services boards to implement additional peer support roles, whether it's a peer recovery specialist or family support partner, I got a lot of questions from some of my friends at the CSBs about all things FSP, especially if they haven't experienced an FSP before. There were a lot of questions. So I went to Pam and Nina and said, can we do this? Because this way we can get all the information out there as best we can to get the dialogue going across the board so folks can learn from one another. So here's the panel discussion that we're going to have. Again, it's going to be informal and kind of interview style. I'm going to pose some questions to our panel and they'll answer based on their experiences. And then we'll have some time for additional participants to ask questions if we didn't cover something that you wanted to know. So I'm going to call on the panelists to introduce themselves. They'll tell you who they are, where they work, and how long they've been in the FSP program there. And then we'll get started. So I'm going to start with Karen Grapowski.
Hi, everybody. I am Karen Grapowski. My title at the Middle Peninsula Northern Neck Community Services Board is Intensive In-Home Coordinator. But under that, I also supervise our entire high fidelity wraparound program. And so we've been providing intensive care coordination for quite some time, shifted over to high fidelity wrap in 2013, 2014 when it came out, and added family support partners to our workforce in about 2017, I guess it was. So we've had family support partners for the last 4 years. And then in 2019, we added youth support partners to our workforce. So we currently employ both, and I supervise both of those positions. So that's my connection to the world of family support partner services.
Thank you, Karen. Dave, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Dave Woodrum. I am the intensive care coordination manager and supervisor over family support partners, mentoring and parenting education with Mount Rogers. I'm also going through the coaching facilitation, basically wear many hats for the agency. But my goal here for today is to be this in the interest of supervision of family support partners.
Thank you, Dave. Carla, would you like to go next?
Hello, everyone. So my name is Carla Oliver, and I'm a family support partner program coordinator with the city of Alexandria with child and family behavioral health. So I am part of the CSB. I have been new to this position as a family support partner coordinator and a family support partner myself since 2019. We have had parent partners before, which that's what we would call them. And I don't know the exact date, but I will say it's around 2014. However, we had a pause in services probably for about a year to make sure that we get this going and get it going right. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carla. Ellen?
Hi, I'm Ellen Craig. My current title is Director of Child and Adolescent Case Management and High Fidelity Wraparound at Region 10 CSB. I started off in the program though as a intensive care coordinator, just as the high fidelity wraparound program was coming in, and then transitioned to high fidelity wraparound facilitator. So I've transitioned through a couple different hats here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Tony, would you like to introduce yourself? There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, good. How you doing? Tony Davis. I'm the parent partner here at Region 10 in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I have been in existence here since 2014, I believe it is. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you, Tony. And Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. My name is Kathy Brown, and I'm the Division Director for Child, Youth, and Family Services at Blue Ridge Behavioral Health Care. And I'm kind of sitting in for Cheryl Wilkinson today. Cheryl is the director over our ICC team. And a number of years ago, we hired a parent support partner. We had one situation that was not a good situation. And then we hired someone second go round that was really good. And unfortunately, that position's vacant right now, but we do have a youth support partner who is just blowing things out of the water with our CSA. And we're getting people who call us specifically because of her and that position. So that's I'm just representing today.
Yes, thank you, Kathy, so much. Excuse me. And the youth support partner position is a very new role, even newer than the FSP role in Virginia, and we are all very excited about that. So there are other folks on this call who have experience with family support partners within their CSBs. So as we go through this discussion, if anybody has anything that they want to add after the panelists speak and that sort of thing, please feel free to do so, because we want to make sure we get all the information covered as best we can. So one of the first questions that I'm going to start off with is around recruitment. Kathy kind of touched on it, that sometimes we don't always get the best fit. Sometimes we don't even know where to start to look for a family support partner. So what I'd like to ask our panelists is, what was your experience in recruiting for a family support partner? Where did you look? How did you get them attracted to you to apply for your CSB position?
I can get us started there. We posted the position like we post every position. And so we fortunately did have several people respond to it. I think the hardest part was, in the posting, there was a statement that said like must have lived experience raising a child with a behavioral or emotional challenge, but then there's nowhere to put that in our application process. So I'd be calling people and saying, hi, I'm Karen, I'm with the CSB, so great to get your application. Oh, by the way, can you tell me about your child? Like, it was this kind of like, nice to meet you, tell me about some of the hardest things you've been through as a parent. And so there was like that awkwardness to that. And I'd say we kind of had similar experiences. The first two family support partners that we hired, I think we learned a lot of lessons along the way, and naturally kind of both sides, both the CSB and the family support partners, realized this wasn't quite a good fit. And we have since hired three more actually. And those family support partners and the CSB, the fit is just that much better. And the services being provided are just much more consistent with high fidelity wraparound principles and tasks. So it does take a little bit, and there's going to be, with any hiring process, there's going to be those people you hire and later on realize, oh, wait, this isn't really working out. And oftentimes that's in both directions. They're not feeling comfortable working. It's not working out for us. So we took the traditional, posted it, and took that kind of risk. Now that we have a few, it's a lot more like word of mouth, like, oh, is there going to be another position open? I think I know someone who might like this. Or so now that we've gotten into it, there's a little bit more word of mouth and that kind of communication.
Oh, and go ahead, Carla.
That's fine, go ahead.
I'll add that when this was before I was a supervisor, but when we had hired our first one, Diane, we had posted, like Karen said, traditional, but we had also kind of looked at our history of parents with clients that we thought might be a good fit. And Diane at that time was working for the state park. And so we kind of headhunted her a little bit because we encouraged her to apply for a position that was opening up, and just kind of did it through the counselor. And she said, well, I'll think about that. And it turned out to be really good, because one of the struggles is, I mean, you know, we looked at all candidates fairly when she applied. I mean, we considered them all, but the biggest trick was finding somebody who we feel could be professional, had a good work record, but then also had that lived experience. And I'll say it's a tough dance to be able to get all three of those components in place.
As Dave, I will say that with us, because we are also part of the CSB and we have to go through Alexander City guidelines, right, when it comes to HR. I'll say parts of it is easy because of that, you know what I mean? Because our HR, we let them know what to look for. So whatever applicants come out, you know, to HR, you know, we will say like the main things that we need, you know what I mean? And so they ended up like, they basically rule everybody out who's not under that category. And then we'll have, you know, I'll make the phone calls like Karen and just say, hey, I see that you have lived experience here. You know, can you share a little bit about that, right? Of course, I always try to like go in with like, I know this sounds awkward. I know this is weird. You don't know me, I'm a stranger, and I'm asking you for some hard stuff. So you know, so they're pretty good with it. And at the end, they're like, thank you so much. And that has been part of like our process. Where I will tell you has been the hardest for us has been looking for bilingual family support partners, because we do live in, I mean, our community here in Alexander City, we do cater to a big population of Latino community. We do need bilingual FSPs. Those I had to actually, you know, post about 2 or 3 times before we got someone who fit under what we needed. The other one we got blessed because she was already doing some work as in panels as crossover stuff, and she already had FSP experience, and she came on with us since we had the benefits and all of that. So that was kind of versus where she was at before. So that's how we still do it with HR.
I would say, as far as recruitment and interviewing, if you have the opportunity, and it sounded like maybe Carla, you all might not, but if you have the opportunity to have a second interview with your team, that is extremely helpful. We have done that now. That's part of our interviewing process with our ICC, is to have the team do a second interview, have the team ask questions, and have the applicant ask questions. You can sit over here. And that way, because vetting is so important, and being a fit, you know, with the staff. And then, you know, I mean, looking back, Tori Robertson, who's on our ICC team, is joining me. But looking back too, setting very clear and concise rules and boundaries from the get, you know, because particularly if you have a parent who currently has a child that's involved with your CSB, whether it be in the child division or the adult division, but setting some very clear boundaries around that, and just laying them out, not assuming that at some point we're going to get to it, but, you know, starting off on the right foot, I think is very helpful in a situation like that.
I did. I appreciate that. I did want to add to that. I just spoke about the HR part of it. We do actually do interviews. So once I speak to them over the phone and I get that they have the lived experience, everything that we need, then we offer them an interview date, right? Then yes, we obviously, we have to have interviews. So then we have an interview panel, and we do also have interview panels that we try to add somebody who has lived experience in there as well. And we do share, in our questions, we do have questions in there that talk about lived experience and sharing their stories. So we do actually do an interview, once after I give them a call and they fit, right? Then I offer them an interview and they come in and we do all of that. Yes, definitely one of those processes that we have with our HR, we have to have that.
Did we just lose Christy?
It looks that way.
It does look that way.
Well,
Well, maybe while we're waiting for Christy to come back, I could add, I feel very fortunate that I was originally part of our interview process that brought Tony Davis to our team, and he was one of our very first parent partners. And so I remember his initial interview, and, just it was helpful. Our process was to have a mixture. I was not the director at that point. It was Crystal Lance, who was formerly our director, and she had us the interview panel that included our ICCs, which was me at that point. And it was helpful to have that mix. We also had another parent partner join, and it, she's unfortunately resigned during the pandemic. It became a little bit too much. And she was also dealing with some increasing issues with her daughter, and felt like she needed to step back and attend to those, which of course we supported. And so it was, but I feel really fortunate that Tony has been a part of our team since its inception as a high fidelity wraparound team. And just very grateful for his wisdom and life experience that he's brought to the team.
So I just wanted to update everyone that Christy lost her power and she's trying to get back in. And I think here she is.
Well, and if we're going through the information she sent out to us, it seems like logically the next question was about onboarding. How do you support family support partners in the onboarding process? So I didn't know if anyone wanted to go ahead and speak to that.
So I'll go ahead and start again. So because what our HR, they have guidelines that all of us have to follow, whether you're FSP, clinician, CPS worker. So we do have a checklist of onboarding process. So one of the things that we make sure that we do, we guide we have to actually introduce the FSPs to everyone here. We have a binder ready for all their needs, the trainings that they need, the yearly trainings that they need, numbers, contact information for community resources, for basically the whole department. We also have them look at department information. They do benefits. It's the first month here. It's nothing but trainings that they're doing, trainings or orientations, right? So we do have it all listed for them, so they can just have a checklist and it's easier for them. So, and then we also have a number of onboarding stuff that needs to be turned into HR, like fingerprints, certain testing, TB testing, all sorts of stuff that we also have a checklist. So we try to make it as simple as possible for them and for us, because we have to turn in those things to HR within a reasonable amount of time, but we also do try to include them in every meeting that we have. And because we are actually here with clinicians, we all know each other. We pass by each other. They know who the FSPs are. They can come knock on their office. We can go to a clinician's office. So we're very intertwined, I'll say, within our FSPs and the clinical world with the rest of the staff from Child and Family Behavioral Health.
I think there's definitely been some additional awareness for me that then I'm like, oh my gosh, this applies to everybody. Like, who am I kidding? So some of our family support partners' lived experience is primarily in the school system rather than the mental health system. And so even knowing what is a CSB and like what are the divisions with it, how many are throughout the state, what exactly does this look like? How do you explain FAPT? If a family's never been to FAPT, how do you do all that education? And so all of those introductory onboarding to the world of serving youth. And in addition to that, one of the things in hiring youth support partners that we've started to do in onboarding is really assessing for where are your limits and how do you know where your limits are at and how do we support you and what are you going to need, and onboarding in the sense of how is the rest of the staff prepared to receive family support partners and youth support partners as equals, as their lived experience is as valuable and important as a degree that you may have, and making sure the work culture is conducive to youth support and family support partner work. That is still a work in progress for us. I know our youth support partners inside the agency, outside the agency, at FAPS are still working to almost prove themselves, like they've been invited to the table, but they're not really sure their voice is quite important enough to be there yet. And so there's just been a lot of additional eye-opening, oh, if I'm gonna ask my youth support partners about where their limits are, we're all humans. I should really be asking my clinicians, like, where are their limits and where, like, it just has really opened my eyes to a bunch of onboarding needs that exist for everyone, but become very like in your face when that first family support partner is like, what is FAPT anyways? And I'm like, oh yeah, we should slow down here, huh? Like, so yeah, that's some of what we've learned at our CSB.
And to kind of piggyback on what Karen had said, I think that, you know, introducing people to everything and not expecting that people know. So, you know, we have them attend FAPT and things like that, but that supervision piece is so important to, like you were saying, I mean, you know, I've been a social worker for 25 years, and although I've developed that professional callousness, there are still days that I walk out of here so overwhelmed at what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, and to think about how that will impact a parent. You know, we have to think about trauma, people's trauma and triggers. We have to educate them about trauma and about the fact that some of these situations may trigger you and you may have a reaction that you don't understand in a FAPT meeting, you know, or when you're talking with a family. So, you know, the training and the professional development pieces, I think, are so important. And I think, you know, we should not take anything for granted in terms of what people understand, or, you know, regardless of your educational level, you know, we need to make sure we're taking care of people.
That reminded me of, I also really, in the onboarding phase, encourage family support partners and youth support partners to know that this is a feedback loop. I have biases, I have blind spots, I have tendencies when I'm dealing with youth that on occasion I can start drifting into a negative conversation about what their parents are or are not doing, and really allowing my family support partners to give me that feedback and say, Karen, that felt kind of shaming and blaming and it didn't feel good to me, and encouraging my growth and development as a supervisor, as just general awareness of how I'm speaking about the people that we work with, and trying to maintain a really growth-focused, strength-based kind of approach to things. So encouraging that feedback loop from the very beginning in that onboarding phase, I think, was really important too.
You're not muted. I wanted to add something. Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I'm coming back. One thing that I think we found relevant for our team too was really the concept in that onboarding of boundaries and confidentiality, and a lot of those things that we learned through our degree process or through our internships or things like that, that's a little bit fuzzy for them because, you know, for most FSPs or even our YSP, we're asking them to go into family settings or meet with people that are having very similar experiences. We've had instances as well with both our FSP and YSPs where they might have worked with the same therapist that the kid is working with, or they might have gone through similar therapies. And so some of that feedback can be really beneficial, and that's what's so beneficial about that role. But it also is kind of what we have learned is that we really have to, during that onboarding process, us as a team, and then even in that supervision piece with our supervisor, the FSP and YSP are really working on what does it look like for you to be aware of your limits and your boundaries. But then also, you know, you've worked in this realm, so you might see someone on the ICC team that you've worked with before, or you might see someone, you know, in the community or at a FAP meeting that's aware of you or that you went to school with or something like that. And how do you handle that situation? Because usually they haven't gotten that piece yet through, you know, if they haven't gotten it through life, then or education, then that's kind of something that has to be discussed.
And self-disclosure is such a biggie, because when do you self-disclose, and understanding the impact of that and that it can backfire. And as a social worker, you know, when it bites you in the butt, you know, I was wrong to do that. So to help, you know, somebody understand how that works, you know.
I want to, first of all, say thank you for picking up the baton there, Karen. My electricity went out. I don't know why. So I lost Wi-Fi for a second. But you guys are speaking to some really great points. And I know Ellen had brought this up when we were preparing for this, of how do you bring that lived experience, the support partner, into your clinical environment? And what does it take to make sure that's a good fit? You know, there's been ups and downs. I've been part of those. So what did you do to prep your clinical team? And then also, how did you make that connection? And I definitely want to hear from Ellen about this. Of course, everybody that has a thought, but also Tony and Carla from the FSP's perspective, what was that like? So Ellen, would you like to get that started?
Sure. I mean, I appreciated that from the get-go, our supervisor at the time was really clear that there was a value and that there was an importance in having those parent support partner voices in our team. There was definitely an adjustment, though, of, you know, coming at it from a very, you know, my background is a clinician, and coming at it from a clinical perspective and bringing that. And it took some adjustment. I know that there were team members of mine who struggled with that, of like, wait, why was that shared? Why was that? I don't understand how that is, you know, supposed to be happening, or how does this fit in? You know, just struggling a little bit with some of that concept. And, you know, I really, again, appreciated that in the supervision, in the discussions, we were really, our leader at the time was very clear, no, you're partnering, this is an important voice, the reasons why that was important. And I would, you know, welcome to hear from Tony, you know, about sort of what that experience was like coming on with all of us. But I appreciated that there was space given in our joint supervision meetings for those discussions. There was also space given for the parent support partners to meet separately and with our leadership in order to have that space to be able to navigate and discuss and vent, as well as some space given to us as clinicians or as high fidelity wraparound clinicians to talk about it without the worry of sort of offending our peer support partners, to help us navigate and hear feedback. We heard direct feedback from our leadership at the time to make space and the purpose behind it, and suggestions about how we would include people, include the parent support partners in our initial introductory meetings. And so we got a lot of guidance, and it was incredibly helpful at the point.
David, I don't know if you want to go first. I can't see you, so I'm okay. You want to go?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Thank you. And what I will say, what I will add to our part is that, like I mentioned before, we were involved, parent partners were involved back like in 2014, right? When Systems of Care grant, all of that was coming out. But one of our, I'll say where our weak points were is that we didn't really have supervisors that has shared, that also has this experience, which is a plus if you can get that has that lived experience, and also, is trauma. One of the things that we also do is, we do the trauma-informed supervision as well, right? Because we need this from lived experience individuals, right, that have to keep opening the same Band-Aid up, right, sharing their story, making connections, doing all of that, sharing that passion that it still hurts, because it's still from, a very, very hard part in our life, and especially if you're still going through certain things as a parent, right? But things change with children. They could be doing great, and they can hit adult, and all of a sudden, adulthood is not all that great, right? You're still a parent, though, right? And you're still doing the work. So even with that, the trauma-informed supervision has helped. And because now we actually, 2 years that I've been doing this, and I have been a supervisor for our FSPs, I've got a lot of training around it. Even though I had my lived experience and I've also worked in the clinical world, I wanted to make sure that I was more human, as far as I'm coming to you as another parent who has gone through this, right? And I'm trying to understand where you're coming from as much as I can. I'm not coming to you with my clinical role. And I've had, a couple of my staff that say, hey, you're seeing it through the clinical lens. And I would say, I appreciate you telling me this, but where I'm looking at it through that lens and through the parent part, well, the lived experience lens, because you work with clinicians. What I do is I like to educate them as well, to be able to say, hey, this therapist is doing this or thinking this because this is what they're seeing it through, right? The only way that I can guide you correctly is by letting you see both perspectives, right? And then you can make these seasoned, FSPs, right? You have these seasoned FSPs that have knowledge from both. Not that I'm saying you got to be a clinician. I'm trying to get them through the the clinical part of it. I need them to understand that, especially because we're so intertwined, right? And we are under a CSB. Our FSPs participate in everything that any of our licensed therapists or qualified mental health professionals work in. They're in every team meeting. They're in every email. We are part of the team. Nobody excludes us. Nobody sees us any different. And I will make sure, I will tell you, I am feisty, and I will fight for that. And I support them all the way. You're not going to exclude my FSPs. They work hard. They're going to be right in there just like everybody. And they know that, right? So I think that was the difference within the last 2 years, because there is supervision, there's guidance. We also have training around FSP stuff that, that Christy has trained us with, right? And also we just recently did the core competencies, the meta skills, right? For core competency, six skills that we have for FSPs, for peer support, that we're basically enhancing that. Christy and I will continue to do some of the coaching, and we'll be making sure that our FSPs are being guided and keeping those skills, enhanced. So I will say my downfall, and I'm talking a lot, but the part that I'll say, the weak part, why we weren't able to keep our FSPs or our family parent partners, is because the supervisor was the same clinical supervisor that they had. There was also, supervising clinicians trying their best, right? And also because of so much of that, and a lot of the clinicians not really understanding the role, they were getting co-opted into doing so many things that they weren't supposed to. Because I have so much training in this, I've got good guidance from Christy, and I've educated myself on the role. I am able to say, hey, this is your role and this is not your role. I'm able to say, hey, how about we communicate this with the clinicians? Let them know that this is as far as you go and this is what you can do, right? So because of that and keeping that collaboration, I have them I'm like, hey, talk to if you can't put them on your schedule to talk to the caseworker that you share the cases with. They're on it. They're consulting. The more and more that they're consulting, they're collaborating, the more and more the clinicians understand their roles and they don't get into that co-opting stuff. But again, it's because, I'm really into it, and I'm like, I want to make sure that they're not overwhelmed, and that because they do this hard stuff, sharing their lived experience all the time, right? It's not an easy job. And so I value, Karen, that you mentioned, I think it was Karen, I'm sorry, that, you know, no, I think it is, or Ellen, I'm sorry, that, you know, mentioned that the degree is just as valuable, right? With their experience, just as any degree. And so I keep that in mind, and you see my passion, so I'm sorry, and I'm talking a lot, but that's kind of how I try, or I would like to say that my staff see me, and how much involvement there is within the clinicians in our FSP. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Carla. And Tony, if you're comfortable, I'd like to hear from you too, because you've been at the CSB in that FSP role the longest. And so if you're interested in sharing what it was like getting acclimated and then what it's been like long term.
All right. I think I came in and I had a unique advantage from the standpoint that, yeah, I had kind of been through the system with 3 different kids, but the real advantage for me was I was coming from working as a residential counselor. And what kind of piqued my interest was working in residential. It just made sense to me that we're catching them too late, if that makes sense. You know, in other words, I was seeing the result of a kid getting caught up in the system, so to speak. And it kind of brought me around to thinking about, you know, my own family members. And, you know, they didn't have this high fidelity wraparound. So I was kind of doing things on my own. But because I worked in residential, I had a couple of more resources than the average parent would. So, you know, fast forwarding to now, because I have that perspective, it allows me to be a bridge between the family and the professionals. Because my approach with families are I can work with families and they'll see me as one of them. They won't see the average clinician as one of them. They won't see the average DSS worker, or they're not going to see all that. But it's real easy for me to engage with them because I've walked a mile in their shoes. And in some instances, I'm still walking that mile right with them. So there's a comfort that, hey, you get it. And so once that's established, then you start, you know, delving into things that are really concerning to the parent. You know, and a lot of what's concerning to the parent is not always what's concerning to you guys, you know, as clinicians, you know. But again, in order to be able to attack the ultimate goal or long-term goal, you got to be able to put out the many fires, so to speak. And so having somebody that can come on board and understand what it is you're going through, and most importantly, not have to really get into a long drawn out explanation, because that's another thing that parents get tired of. They explain it to this one person, then they got to explain the same thing to the other person. But in my instance, I can come in and say, hey, look, I know you're probably going through A, B, and C. And it's just that automatic, wow, you get it. And so that kind of, it affords a bridge between us. And then it's easier for me to get what their true concerns are and pass it on, but passing it on in such a way that I'm letting them know that, hey, I'll walk this walk with you, but I want you to understand that this is going to be you calling the shots. Because at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, I'm going to fall away. Certain people are going to fall away. You still got to keep this ship afloat. So let's get you to exercising your voice, because that's what's going to be important, whether or not you're working with other parents, whether or not you're working with clinicians or whatever have you. You have to establish who you are, you know, in terms of the care that you're searching for your family. Because if you're unsure of what you need, how are you going to get other people to understand what it is that you need? And then that's my approach with parents, is to get them to understand that your voice matters. At the end of the day, unless it's some type of mandate on you, you're the one that's running this show, and we're kind of working for you. And because of the way the system has been, that's hard for parents to accept that I'm really in charge, you know, and it's not from the standpoint, and that's one thing that I stress to parents, you know, don't disregard what the clinicians have to say, you know, because they're giving you good, you know, pertinent information, but understand the value of your ideas and make sure you're bringing your ideas to the table. And in terms of what I've noticed from our community service board, that we work very hard on not dismissing what parents say, you know, because that, if they ever get the feeling like that, you tend to lose them. And when I say lose them, not just the parent, but the kid. The kid probably don't want to be there anyway. He just probably sees as more people that's bugging him, you know. But the parents, who are really the glue to the family unit, if we want to go ahead and continue to work with them, you have to establish a comfort for them, and you have to establish a similar comfort with the clinicians that you're working with, because you know, parent support partners, youth support partners, it's not a step that they had to take before, so to speak. So there has to be, from the parent partner or family support partner standpoint, they're actually working both sides. They have to look at themselves as a bridge.
Mhm. Thank you, Tony, for that. I really appreciate your input. Ellen, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I was just gonna see if Tony could say a little bit more about, you know, how he navigated with us initially. You know, and Tony, was it hard to get the clinicians, get me as a clinician to hear you? I know you've called me out at different points. So.
Well, again, you know, like I said, it's you're in a unique position where, yeah, you're learning, but you're also teaching, so to speak, because you know, clinicians, you know, their history is the way that they had to work with these families. They never had to take this approach, you know, that high fidelity wraparound kind of institutes. And because of that, sometimes you do have to, and I'll be, you know, totally forthright. I usually talk, you know, in our supervisions, and make clear that if I have to interrupt you or stop a meeting for anything, I want you to know that the only reason why I'm going to do it is because something is going off track. And that doesn't necessarily mean the process. It could just be me looking at the parent and saying, oh, no, he or she is about to blow their stuff, so to speak. So it's just that feel of knowing, you know, but as a clinician, you're probably used to step A, B, C, get it done. So sometimes I do have to step in and say, hey, look, I know, you know, you mean well about this, but I'm thinking you're missing what's really going on with this particular parent or something. And for me, and I've actually talked, you know, with my supervisor about it. I'll be honest, sometimes I feel funny about it, but it never stops me from doing it. And I'll usually go back to the individual and say, hey, look, this is where I was coming from. Didn't know where you were coming from. Definitely the parent didn't know where you were coming from. It just was rubbing the parent the wrong way. So I just thought it better to let's pump the brakes, and we can always come back. That's what the parking lot is for, if that's what we have to do. But we want to keep things at a level, you know, civil playing field, so that the family be willing to come back to the table. Because you have to keep in mind, if they're uncomfortable with what you're saying and they don't feel like they have a voice, what chance you think you're gonna get to, you know, keep them coming back to the table? It's gonna be like pulling teeth, or you like out in the woods hunting. You got to keep chasing them down. So,
Thank
but
you.
yeah, we do. I do have to now and then, you know, and sometimes I don't have to do it, but just for my comfort, I like to just approach, say, hey, you know, I wasn't trying to be rude or stop, you know, but communication, people say communication between the families and, the team is important, but communication between the team is important. And then that's the only way that there is no misunderstandings or disputes.
Yes. Thank you, Tony. So impactful and powerful. I really appreciate hearing you share. Thank you. So we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to make space for the participants on the call to ask any questions that we may not have gotten to in our discussion. So if anyone has a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask it, or put it in the chat.
Can I ask a question about, this is Mike with Henrico. Hi, everybody. Thank you for doing this. I was hoping you guys could talk a little bit about the peer certification process and how that works, and what are kind of the prerequisites, things like that.
I'll start that conversation for you, Mike. And then if anybody else wants to chime in, please do. So the peer recovery specialist certification in Virginia is not required to do peer support work. It is encouraged for all peer supporters in that it gives you a better foundation of how to provide peer support. And it is a requirement if you intend to reimburse for peer support services from Medicaid. If one of your funding streams in the future will be Medicaid, it is a requirement for that. And so the 72-hour approved DBHDS training is required. And then you have to have 500 practice hours to sit for the certification exam through the Virginia Certification Board. And then you have to apply to be registered with the Virginia Board of Counseling. And then once all of those pieces have been accomplished, then you can be considered for Medicaid reimbursement. Again, it's not required for family support partners or really any support partners to do peer support work, but it is encouraged because of those linear pieces.
Christy, I just wanted to add that there are quite a few CSBs that require that a person is certified, even if they're not going to bill, but they probably will one day, or that they will get their certification, within the first year, that they will take the training and do the 500 hours and take the test, but just even though it's encouraged, just so people know that a lot of places are requiring it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's a good point. I come from private provider world, and it was never required. It was encouraged. And I have seen that too on the job applications, that the certification is expected for that peer recovery specialist or family support partner. So thank you for pointing that out.
I'm interested in hearing how other CSBs plan to use their parent support partner other than, in an ICC setting. What are some other things that you envision the parent partner being able to work on or work with?
If you like, I can speak on that. We have standalone. All our services are pretty much standalone, right? So I have probably half ICC and probably more than half standalone. So what we do is any intensive case that we get, because we usually work our unit works for intensive cases, we'll get referrals from either one of the therapists or from a probation officer, from child welfare, when they have parents that they identify fits the need of not understanding the systems, not knowing how to navigate, right? Lacking natural support, very overwhelmed. You know, you got the ones, the referrals that say defensive parent, you know, things like that, because they're not really understanding where the parent's coming from. So there's like names that they put on you know, on parents that making it seem like, you know, they're not great parents, right? So all those cases, I look at them, you know, I consider which ones, you know, will definitely take. Most of the time, unless we have like a waiting list, I'll take them all. What we do though, because of the funding issues, if, you know, they're coming in from, you know, child welfare, probation officers, you know, schools, we do make sure that they take it to our FAPS, right? Once they take it to FAPS, then we get the funding for our standalone services, right? And 9 out of 10, we get it like that. So, you know, we provide just as much as I mentioned right now, and then, you know, we provide all the support, the empowerment, you know, you know, just helping them navigate. I mean, anything based on what I just explained to you. I mean, we're doing it all. So, and it's been beneficial and it's been working, and we keep getting referrals.
So I think at Henrico, we've sort of just begun sort of thinking about our family support partner, but I think we've talked a lot and how we've used them in the past through FAPT funding is really with folks who are families who are going into residential. And I really kind of see with us having a family support partner in-house at our CSB to really prioritize our families who are going to FAPT, because I mean, that really is probably the most daunting process that any family has to go through. I mean, it's daunting for us, you know, to be part of it with folks. And so that really is kind of like the place that I see as kind of the priority for our family support partner. And then sort of, I think, sort of see where it goes from there. We do a lot of family meetings. And so I could see where that would really be something that, you know, so not ICC, but similar to having family meetings, we really promote and support that. And I feel like that having a family support partner, even just participating and helping with those would be something that would be good for us in our agency and just how we work at Henrico.
I just want to let everybody know that Karen put something in the chat about using YSPs and FSPs in residential and group home too.
Yeah, really just, I mean, the OCS policy is high fidelity wrap has to have a 90-day discharge, but in terms of support partners, if it's a standalone service, that's a different thing. And so really providing that support, allowing parents, okay, take a breath, you're not in crisis mode, your child is here, and we can't take a breath for 10 months. Like there's work to be done to prepare for your child to return home. And then having the YSP really maintain communication with the youth so they don't feel like they've lost all sense of connection back home into the community. And I've been talking to my YSPs about all those kind of high fidelity wrap things, like what's working inside the residential? Is that something that can translate home? Is it something that we can take lessons learned? Is it a skill that can be transferred, just like we're looking for in high fidelity wraparound? And who's working on that during the entire process, rather than, okay, kid, it's time to graduate. You remember what you learned here? Great, good luck. Clearly, I will own my bias against residential treatments. So anyways, but just that whole process of really making sure a family and youth feel supported and connected during that. And obviously we'll have more knowledge about when a 90-day discharge is present, so we can connect them to the whole formal process as fast as possible.
I want to thank you all for your input and your questions. And I noticed we are almost at time, so I don't want to keep you any longer. What I would like to say, though, is if you continue to have questions about this role, you can absolutely reach out to me. I am probably going to connect you to one of these panelists to share from a CSB's lens of what they have going on. Feel free, I'm putting it out there, just reach out to each other if there's other questions that you have and you want to learn more from the panelists who've been doing this for a while. So any way that I can be of assistance, I'm here. Just let me know. You can get my email address I've sent to most of you. Pam, you can get to her, she can get it to me, whatever you need, because we want to make sure that this is a smooth transition for everybody and that it's a good experience for everybody. And if you haven't had the honor of being a part of a support partner on your teams, it can be kind of a unknown territory, and we're not quite sure how to maneuver this, but don't forget you have supports. We are here to help you get through this and make it a good experience for everybody. So thank you all for being a part of this. This was recorded, so we're going to figure out those logistics to see and get it sent back out to the larger group to make sure that everybody can see this, and if they have further questions from it, we can support each other through that. So thank you again. If you have any further questions, please let me know, and I look forward to speaking with all of you again in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.